an idea in a concrete, pragmatical, viable project.
I think in 15 minutes.
Testing 1 2 3. Testing, testing, testing.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome in Impulse at the Infomeeting about the Urban Greenhouse Challenge. Happy to see you all. I just hope you're here for the content and not just because it's raining outside. Let me start by introducing myself. My name is Rio. I've been working on organizing the first edition of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge, Rethink Protein, and now we're on to the second edition already of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge. And I do that together with my colleague Marta, who will introduce herself when I hand over the phone in a few minutes. I'm just curious to know, who of you is coming from outside of Wageningen?
Oh, wow.
One.
Okay. Where do you come from today?
Bennekom, outside of the Wageningen?
Okay. Anybody else from Bennekom? Okay, great. And you? Where did you come from today?
Oh, never mind.
Oh.
I thought you meant something else.
Oh, okay. So in principle, everybody is studying at Wageningen today, right? Yeah. Okay.
And who of you was already aware of the first edition of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge? Who has followed that? One. Yeah. Did you know people that participated? Just followed it online. Yeah. Also curious to know, whom of you already registered? One. What's your name? And do you have a team, or did you register as an individual? Okay. Yeah. Good. Anyone else who already registered? No? Okay. I hope after tonight that will change. Then I'm curious about what your backgrounds are, because it's a very multidisciplinary challenge. So I'm curious to see who we have in the room in terms of disciplines. So who's working on environmental technology, environmental issues? Good. So pay attention, for your team you need all. Who does studies at social sciences? Good. Who is studying something related to horticulture? I think that's the majority. Who's studying economics? That's also a very crucial element, so look at that girl. Anyone with an architectural background, because that you will need as well. Yes, very good. Remember those faces. All right, nice to meet you all. We're not going to do individual introductions, that's a bit too much. I'm going to hand over the microphone to my colleague Marta, and she will give you a brief introduction about the challenge.
Hi, everyone. So we are here today for more or less 1 hour. The program consists of a short introduction of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge. Maybe some of you have already read some information about the challenge online. I will go a little bit deeper, give you a little bit more information, so hopefully that will be very useful. We'll have also a presentation of Gert Spaargaren, who is also involved in the organization of the challenge from the very beginning. He's one of the persons who are let's say, the person who came up with the idea. And he will talk about social arguments for urban farming, because, well, we often think, okay, urban farm, what do you need? Architecture, food production, circularity, and good business model. But he's going to tell about one more aspect that we need to consider. And then at the end, we'll have Fruzi, who was part of the winning team of the first edition, the Green Works, and she will explain you the participants' perspective. So how does it feel to participate in the Urban Greenhouse Challenge? And then we'll have time for Q&As. Maybe there are some people following us online. So I say also hello to everybody who is following the live stream. And Marlene, sitting over there, is collecting all your questions. So if you have some questions, you can give it to us, and then we will answer them also during the Q&As. Okay, so let's get started. Just looking around if Fru and Gerda are here, but I don't see them yet. Okay. You have already seen the trailer. So what is Urban Greenhouse Challenge about? It's about designing an urban greenhouse for a multi-million city. That's basically the goal. And we say, well, it needs to be an iconic architecture. It has to be circular design. You need to think about a feasible business model, and you need to think about social interactions. So as you see, this is how we formulate the goal, and that's how it translates. So what Rio just did, she was asking, okay, who of you is involved in architecture? Who of you has the expertise in circularity, food production system? Those are the expertise that you need to create a team who can go for the challenge. Every edition of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge is based on a different location. In the first edition, we had a very exciting place in Amsterdam, an old prison. And this time we go for something completely different. This time we have a green field in Dongguan. It's a city in southern China, and we will show you where it is for people who are, as me, very bad with geography. And it's a very exciting project, actually. And I will tell you a bit about it in a minute. So this is China. I hope you know where the China is. And Guangdong, as you can see, it's down there. And if you zoom in, Dongguan is actually a little bit above Hong Kong. And we are talking about this specific part of Dongguan. And what you need to know about this place, it's one of the most populated areas in the world. I don't remember how many million people live there, but it's very populated. It's also a place, that is very progressive. So a lot of innovation takes place there. It's like an innovation hub of China with a lot of great ambitions. I have heard that if you go to the supermarket there, you don't pay with your, with your credit card, but you pay with your face. And if you forgot your adapter for your Mac, then you order it online and it's within 15 minutes delivered to your place. So it's a very high-tech place. And I think that makes this location very exciting. As I said, it's very populated as well. That also means that there is a lot of buildings and not so many green spaces. So the company we work with for the Urban Greenhouse Challenge, the Country Garden, has been kind of commissioned to create a place, like a kind of green island, or they call it a central park for this area. So the place where people can come to recreate, to connect with nature, and also for the tourists. So that's how the Marina Central Agricultural Park will look like in the future. This is how it looks like right now. And let's say for the challenge, you of course don't need to design the entire area. We have a specific plot, and well, it looks like this now. In the future, it will look like this. And actually, in that corner, there is a space for this urban greenhouse of the future that you can design. So I think it's super exciting. You have all the freedom to think of the most crazy and most high-tech building possible. Those are the designs from the last year's challenge, or like as first edition. The winning concepts, the second and the third place. Quite fancy architecture, I really like them. Well, what is next? That's the question. What you will come with. And now I will take you through the timeline of the challenge. Basically, it's one academic year, just like to put it quite simple. So, well, you can start right now, or the registration closes on 31st of October, and the finals are halfway June 2020. So the registration goes via website. Maybe you have seen it already, and you see over there, apply now. That's where you can register for the challenge until the 31st of October, as I said. And on 15th of October, we have the official opening event, the Kickoff meeting. It's going to take place here at the campus in Orion building. And we have two very nice speakers who will present there. And I can already tell you that both those speakers will be the future jury members of the challenge. So it's worthwhile to listen to their talks. So I invite you to this event if you are interested in urban farming in any case, even if you don't participate in the challenge. And halfway the challenge, we have the first milestone. And this is what you need to deliver by 6th of January. And based on your first delivery, 20 teams will be selected to go to the site visit in China. And as you can see, it's really about analyzing the context, coming up with the program. So you know what is the program of your building, and also the first concept for it. And now I want to show you the video, because halfway the challenge we have the site visit. So we are going really, those 20 best teams will go to China to collect data, and there will be also part of coaching and networking, and possibility to visit some exciting places in the greater Bay Area. But I want to show you a video of how it looked like at the first edition. So today it's one of the highlights of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge. Representatives of 21 teams came here to collect the data for their design. We are visiting the Belmai buyers, but also interesting project in Amsterdam to get inspiration and collect the data.
So we have finally gotten the chance to actually see what we're designing for. And then we have visited some interesting urban farming projects, which are also really helpful to get new ideas. We're basically designing a building. You have no feeling at all of how big it is, how high are the floors, what can I do with it, how are the spaces divided. You can never get that feeling when you're just looking at a map. So I think that's the most important thing we got from visiting the Belmai Rise, and that's really, really essential.
I think there is a good spirit, good vibe in the group. People are eager to learn about each other and exchange ideas.
It's very, very good to know different people that work on the project that also have different point of view on the project. So talking with them, I find many useful information.
At first we were always talking within our group about urban farming, but now we are talking with so many other people about urban farming. You're getting feedback on your ideas, you're getting new ideas into your head, and I think it gives a much, much better idea of where you are.
That was last year, or like And what follows after the site visit? Well, you have time to further develop your concept, hopefully based on the feedback from the coaches. So basically, the second milestone is very similar to the first one, but you need to go much more more in depth and provide a detailed design. On our website, you can already find the list of deliverables, and for the first and for the second milestone. So it's worthwhile to look at it. It's quite a long list, but it's very clear, I hope. And then we go to the finals. So 10 best teams will get possibility to attend the finals. It's linked to a boot camp where you get to know each other, when you work on your presentation, when you work on your prototype as well. And then there's a great moment to celebrate. I have a movie, but I think we need to skip it for the moment. What is new for this edition is that we work with an online platform. It's linked to our website, and it's a place where you can upload your team profile and milestones, but also all the announcements are placed there, reference documents, the site data package, but it's also, I think, the most important part is that you can also use this platform to connect to the coaches, so people from companies, but also from the universities, from research institutes, to ask their advice, to kind of network with them. So it's useful for your project, but it's also useful for you personally, as you can extend your network. You may ask yourself, okay, how will be judged? So we have two different juries, let's say. The first and the second milestone, the selection will be done by our board of advisors, who also helped us to create the list of the deliverables. You can see the faces over there. And the winner, second and third place, will be chosen by the international jury. Well, the full jury will be announced soon, but as I told during the kickoff meeting, you can get a preview of two of the jury members. And for the criteria, well, online we also have a very elaborated list of criteria, but I think what is important to know is that we're looking for interdisciplinary integration on one hand, but also on depth and innovation on each of the 5 aspects of the challenge at the same time. And the minimum requirements that I listed on the website are minimum requirements. So we hope that you can go much further than that one. As I say, the sky is the limit in that case. Well, and then I think the last slide, why do you participate in the challenge? And I think Fruzi will tell more about it, but I'll just make a short summary. There is a prize poll, and it's quite attractive, I guess. It's a great learning experience, and as I said, it's also a great networking opportunity. You will hear more about it. And it's also your possibility to really use your talent for thinking about solutions for a more sustainable world. So I think that's quite motivating. And one last slide about Wageningen students. We have a special thing for you. So we can support 2 Wageningen teams with a workspace, participation in a course worth of 12 study points, a coach is part of the course, start budget, and on-demand specific workshops. So you are also not alone in that process. Well, question is, who is going to be next winner? Maybe it's you. Check our website for more information. And I now would like to give floor to Fruzi. So we changed a little bit the order of presentation. Who has won with her team the first edition?
Hi guys, I am Fru, and currently I'm a 3rd-year master's student doing my thesis in environmental sciences, and I have my flexible master label designed. That's also one of the outcomes of the challenge. I guess I will not need my notes. So when I came to Wageningen to study here, I think you must be first years now. I was very unsure of what to do. I came from the background of finance and economics, and I just knew that I wanted to do something related to environmental science, something related to nature, but I really didn't know what it was. And I heard about the Greenhouse Challenge. I started to come for the info sessions, and my main motivation to join was just to do something different, something extra that is next to the curriculum of the university. And and then basically I entered the challenge. And today I would like to talk about what it was like to start the challenge, what it was like to end the challenge, which was very relieving, I have to tell, and what challenges did we face in the meantime. And at the end, I would like to share some specific opportunities. So, as I said, I really contemplated on joining the challenge or not. Like, I was not really in the phase of, oh yeah, I really need something else in my life. But then I came to an event which was organized by Rio and Marta last year, which was called the Matchmaking event. And that event was when students like you now came together and started to form teams. So we started to get to know each other, started to get to know each other's backgrounds. And that was the point when I thought that, okay, I'm actually not alone in this. Now we're forming a team. Now we're forming a group of people. People are counting on me, and I can count on people to start the challenge and to start participating in a year-long process. And so after the matchmaking event, we founded a nonprofit called Greenworks, in which we were 8 people at that point from very diverse backgrounds, and which were very diverse academic and very diverse cultural backgrounds as well. So starting the challenge, what was it like? Here we are, 8 people starting the challenge from 5 different countries and 8 different study backgrounds. And what was interesting in this team is that all what we knew was that we are participating in this challenge, that we have the motivation to do something next to our studies, but we didn't know what it is like to design a greenhouse and food production for 3,000 people. We had literally no idea what we're getting into. We had a lot of help, and I think Marta mentioned that already that there is a starter kit package for the teams who enter the challenge, which is we were very lucky because we won a 10,000 euro grant, basically from the university, to start this challenge. And this grant was in terms of knowledge vouchers, coaching, also some cash to spend on external companies, consultancy, and so on, which was very helpful because we really had no idea, no experience at all. Also, one difficulty throughout the challenge was that we had no idea about how much time and willingness our team members have to participate in the challenge. So we were 8 people following 8 different master programs, and I didn't know how much my friend wants to do this challenge. And so at some point, when we had to apply for this grant, we had to come up with an organizational structure. We had to come up with a kind of value set that we had. And here you can see what it was like. It was an extremely hierarchical structure. We had 3 departments in the organization. One was focused on neighborhood integration. That's the social department assessing the needs of what people need around the greenhouse. We had a food production team who was responsible on how to sustainably produce food in the greenhouse. And the third, an economics department who was focused on how to make all of this financially feasible. And we also had one project manager who was responsible for communicating between these teams and communicating with Rio and Marta about the challenge. So we came up with this kind of far-fetched structure, and where it ended was this. This was our final design. And we started with the values in the beginning of, let's be nature-oriented. That's going to work for us. Let's focus purely and solely on nature, start from that, and then we'll see what happens. And at the end, we came up with 3 values that were representing the whole team, which were environmental sustainability, healthy lifestyle, and the power of community. And you can see that this is already very different from a purely nature-based approach. And although we never focused on wanting to win the greenhouse challenge, we somehow did. We never thought that, we're going to satisfy the criteria of the challenge and then we're going to design something and that's going to win the challenge. It was more like, let's try to represent most of us in the design. Let's try to represent what a greenhouse or what food production means for us. Let's try to put that into a comprehensive picture and present that on the grand finale. And we did not care about winning it or not, or having the prize, the money or not, but somehow it worked out well for us. And so what were the challenges that put this organization from having a hierarchical structure with a far-fetched approach to something that was actually co-creative, inclusive, and I have to say a bit radical for the design as well. So this is how we started. You saw this picture already. And this is how we finished the challenge. We doubled the team in half a year. So after, I think we were almost throughout half of the challenge when we realized that we don't have anything. We have a lot of good ideas. All the departments did their tasks, but the departments couldn't really communicate with each other. So we didn't really know how to put these ideas together. And then some ideas came, okay, we need more people in the team. So in 1 month, we decided to invite 8 people in the team. So we became 16 people. And as inspiring and refreshing that change was for the team, I have to tell that that was also as disruptive for everyone. Because we had already kind of an idea, okay, we're going to be nature-based, we're going to pay attention to nature. But then 8 people suddenly came, and they had a completely different idea about what we should do with the greenhouse. And so that was the point when we first had the idea that, okay, maybe we should try to include everyone in discussions in the same way, let everyone have the same words in the team, and let everyone express their opinion in an equal way on the team. And so from this organizational structure, we became a flat organizational structure where we basically, throughout the half of the challenge, came up with a list of questions, what we still have to answer until the end. And we just put them on a paper and set up task forces for each question. This looked like something like this. So, for example, a question was, what activities should be in the greenhouse? What plants and how much of those plants shall we grow to satisfy the hunger of 3,000 people? Or how will people stay involved in developing and transforming this greenhouse? How will they still be engaged in 5 or 10 years? So for example, for the plant questions, like how much and what kind of plants and how much shall we grow? We set up a task force. Okay, we have a plant scientist, an organic farmer. They will decide on the type and the amount of plants. They will know how to farm. We had a social scientist on that task force who was responsible to assess what the neighborhood needs. And we also had an economist on that team to decide how to make it actually economically feasible, how to find a sustainable business model for that. So I think for me, that was one of the biggest learning points. How to, in the meantime of a challenge when we know we have the pressure of finishing a whole design, how to open up, have a crisis, open up, and then change my mind in terms of trying to listen to people and try to include them in the design. So after designing the greenhouse and winning the challenge, there was a lot of very specific opportunities that came to me, but none of them was dependent on winning the challenge or not. Because as you have seen, the journey throughout the challenge was so much more important than actually winning it or not. I actually couldn't even participate on the finale because I was already on my semester abroad. But yeah, here are some. So after the challenge, I got an internship because of one of my friends who I met from another team during the challenge. Right now, I'm writing my thesis with Gert, who is going to be the next presenter on organic farming. I participated in many interviews and online courses, which are available at the university. We have a nonprofit, which I think is kind of cool. And we are trying to do now new things with this nonprofit, with the money that we won at the end of the challenge. And basically, throughout this whole year, we delivered a project, a huge project with 16 people, and we got the tools from the university, almost the same ones as they give for the people that are doing their ACTs, but in a much deeper and much more elaborate sense. So after the challenge, I had to do my ACT, which was a game, I have to tell. And yeah, so we got a huge industry exposure. We got to know a lot the Dutch context, which I guess will be different this year, maybe because of the Chinese context. And yeah, now we have a lot of friends and professional connections. So I hope that this was informative to you, and maybe you can have now a little bit more knowledge on what to expect. But I will be here I think, after the presentations. And please feel free to contact me. Here is my email address. And yeah, I wish you the best of luck.
So, because thank you, very inspiring talk, but maybe there are some direct questions for you, because you raised a lot of things on the group and the group process and how exciting it is to participate. And my story will be much kind of more dull. So maybe you have some questions for Fru now already?
Nothing?
Maybe this is also listed online, but I wonder, because you have people from all disciplines, so what's your final product? Because like me, I'm an architect, so we usually just handing a portfolio, including all the designs. So do you also have like a management plan or, I don't know, economic plan? Yeah. Things like, okay, so it's like a series of products.
Your submission is, or your entry is a portfolio. Oh, sorry. That consists of many different, let's say, small products, and the full list is online. So I think it's best if you check it, because it's quite detailed list. And well,
yeah. So we had to satisfy 3 types of criteria. One was kind of social, embedding in a neighborhood. Another one was economic, how to make it financially feasible. And the last one was plant production systems. So how much plants, what resources do we use, and how to feed 3,000 people. And the design was part of the social embedding.
Thank you.
more questions for Fru? And we give the floor to Gerrit.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. Well, we will have general discussion after my presentation, and then if you have questions on the process and how students went through the challenge, then Fru will still be there next to Rio and Marta. So my name is Gert Spaargade. Actually, I'm here because I was one of the initiators of the whole idea of having a urban greenhouse challenge. And it was because we were celebrating our 100-year celebration as a university. So there needs to be something special being done. And there was a group of people just trying to have a brainstorm on what could be done that makes us kind of well known as a trendy, fashionable university on the international level, being involved with really innovative kind of stuff in food. And that's how the kind of urban greenhouse challenge was, the idea was born. So I will tell you a little bit about the content of the challenge, and also the main question, why is it called a challenge? What is difficult about it? What is kind of challenging about it? And if you have a question along the way, it's no problem. The future of a food system is on urban food production will be more important. And they were, of course, because they are a horticulture journal, they were really kind of convinced that urban food growing, that's the real future for food. We were making a kind of transition then from the already existing systems of food production, which are kind of in the rural areas that are kind of open systems. They are most of the time not yet a circular production methods. They produce, you know, kind of potatoes and maize and this kind of grain, so bulk products, which should be cheap and accessible, and they are a bit remote from well, the everyday life experience of people who live and cook with food. So what we need nowadays is to make a shift from these kind of, let's say, classical paradigm food production to the more modern or contemporary paradigm of food production. And it should be urban, in closed systems, circular, focusing on the consumption of food as well. Niche markets are very important, so innovative food products. They can be a bit more expensive, so the issue of accessibility is it affordable for everyone, also when you have a low income? That is an issue. But it's very close by, so you should be able to just connect to the food more easily as an inhabitant of a certain city. So this paradigm shift is celebrated more or less by the Urban Greenhouse Challenge, but it's not something that's already there. There are many people working also in Wageningen that do not agree with this. They say, well, this is only a nice play tool for postmodern thinkers, and it's kind of emerging in some trendy cities like Barcelona or Amsterdam, but it's not the future for food production. It's kind of, they think it's a little bit overemphasized. So there is a whole debate going on. So what is the future for urban food production? How important is it? How kind of massive is the change towards kind of urban sites for food production? Is it marginal, or is it really kind of having an impact in the food system overall? And then this article ended with a quote that this person that was kind of defending it said, well, the classical approach is that you just think about tons per hectare. That's the way of thinking of, let's say, the food producers that are into bulk production. And he said, instead of tons per hectare, we should talk about returns per square meter. So it means that you kind of really think about smaller amounts of space, but they have different kind of rewards. So you can grow many different kind of things, or even combine growing of food with other also social functionalities. As long as you make returns per square meter, you're okay. So I thought that was a very nice way of thinking about it, but still this is about only the money side of it. So it's just making money with food production. And what I want to discuss with you, if you compare the new paradigm in the making with the classical, the traditional paradigm, what should change in the mindset of the people involved in food production? I think that's important, because you are part of that population. You study in Wageningen, so you will be kind of part of making the food system of the future. So in Dutch, urban food, growing urban food, is it to replace the traditional way of farming? That was the kind of discussion that we are entering with the Greenhouse Challenge. Well, it is true that we are developing at least a new child within the family of growing food. So urban food is there to stay. It's no longer just kind of a tiny thing. It's recognized by many people to be an alternative at specific places. For example, when you have a scarcity of water in the Middle East, when you then grow in greenhouses and urban places, then you can be very more efficient in terms of water use when compared to the normal open systems. Or nowadays it's kind of obvious, when you are in extreme weather condition areas, then also the closing off of food production from the weather. It's also something that is well accepted as one of the reasons why it makes sense to grow urban food. And of course, there are new priorities and goals being introduced in food production nowadays. So consumers are demanding different kind of foods, both in terms of what is produced and also in how it is produced. And also in this area, I think growing urban food can have answers that the traditional systems don't have. So yes, there is a new paradigm in the making. It's not replacing the old paradigm entirely, but it has a legitimate place in the family of food production systems. And we call it growing urban food. And we make an urban greenhouse challenge to say, okay, how can you design a greenhouse that serves this function of producing food in an urban environment? That's basically how the challenge emerged. And then we were convinced, as the people who developed the greenhouse challenge, that just innovation in food and innovation in kind of environmental and technical aspects of the food production, it's not enough. So there's a lot of emphasis on new lighting systems, using LED lights, or using all kind of ways to heat and cool the system. So that's all about the technology. Wageningen is very strong on that. And you could say in urban farming, you can see a lot of innovations that refer both to the kind of food that is produced and the circularity of the food. But I would say that in itself is not enough to say, okay, let's go urban with food production. So that is my statement I want to discuss with you. Because if you use urban space for growing food, as you know, urban space is very expensive. So it can be used for many different kind of things. And if you would just say, okay, urban food production can be done there in a technical, more efficient or circular way, so we start to occupy urban space and to reserve it for food production, I think that will not be embraced as a good idea. So it will be met with resistance because people say, no, we can also have a parking place there, or we can have a new cinema there, and this is what people like more. So urban planners and policymakers, they should be convinced why growing food in an urban environment should be kind of something they should promote and accept, or not. And I just prepared 2 additional arguments why you should produce food in urban environments. First, I think the main argument would be, by doing so, you can reconnect producers and consumers of food. And this is something that modern food systems are not very strong at, because food is produced in remote rural areas, and then it's brought by very modern logistics to the city, and then in the city, then the consumers, they just consume the food that they know they come from far, also from, kind of the global south, when you are here in the Netherlands. Or so since food systems are globalized systems, the distance between producers and consumers have grown immensely. So people don't know about conditions of food production. They don't witness how it is produced. They don't see it. They cannot control it. That's why we invented labels. Labels and certification systems give consumers some power to control the conditions of production. But it's because it's far away, because it's invisible. And if you then go to shortening your supply chain and labeling your globalizing food chains, then you make efforts to kind of reconnect to consumers again. And that's what we see as a main trend over the past 10, 15 years that's happening, but it's not enough. So if you then go for urban food as a site of food production, you just go further than just shortening supply chains and labeling food. You actually bring food production under the eyes of the consumer. And you invite the consumer to come and take a look, to smell and touch the food, maybe do some cooking with it, to learn about food production, even also with schools and kids. You can just reach out to have some educational programs in how modern food is grown in the greenhouse. And this is all so in designated urban spots at walking and cycling distance. So this is the idea that you are not somewhere out there with your urban food growing, but you are close to urban context where inhabitants can come and visit the greenhouse. The previous one on Amsterdam, the Bijlmer Baaijes, so it was really kind of close to a metro station, and all people in Amsterdam, they could basically bike there. So that was also behind your idea of inventing an inclusive program for people that are going to live there. You mentioned 3,000, because there were 3,000 inhabitants planned to live in the neighborhood of this greenhouse. And now in China, we have another spot and kind of some planning of what's happening around it. And I think for the greenhouse challenges, it's important to look at these surroundings and to see what kind of people are living there, what do they want from food and food production, and how can we connect to their demands. So I think connecting people to food production is some of the additional arguments next to food innovation and technological innovation. Here you can see that happening. So this is a nice warm picture, because vertical farming and urban greenhouse is connected to people doing all kinds of things. Here they are enjoying the food, and here they take part in production of the food. But not all systems are as friendly to consumers, because sometimes they are just sealed off from consumers because of food safety reasons. And they are just in a very closed system with hygienic conditions. You don't have people just here walking around and participating. They don't like citizens to take part in that because it's high-tech food production. So this is something you have to solve as a challenge team. How do we find the right balance between, let's say, rationalizing the production system and including citizens in that? So I think that's one of the dilemmas that you have to discuss and find your way. The idea is that you have, this is a rooftop example, it's not an urban greenhouse, but the idea is that food is close to the citizen, and the citizen can visit the greenhouse and make kind of themselves known with the different aspects of what you can do if you have innovative food. Like the quinoa used to be an example. How can you just make use from quinoa stuff when you make salads or when you are just cooking and so on. So it's kind of learning by doing with the urban food grown in the urban greenhouse. So the second argument, I have 5 minutes left, yeah, is that you argue that an urban greenhouse is not just innovative in terms of food, but it is adding to the social and environmental quality of city life. So this is what you should say as a team to the municipal authorities when you are pleading to have an urban greenhouse in the city. Well, it makes your city better. Better in social terms and better in environmental terms. And this is something that I want to show. Circularity is something that the term you have heard about, I hope. It's kind of making systems more sustainable by closing cycles, by being smart and intelligent, and how these different elements of the systems should be connected and so on. So circularity is something that you can apply at the level of the greenhouse itself, so that the greenhouse can be called, let's say, a low carbon or no CO2 neutral building, something like that. Then you think about the urban greenhouse as a circular building in itself. But you go one step further when you say, well, I design a greenhouse that also makes the city in itself more circular and sustainable. So that also the environment of the greenhouse will be kind of benefiting from the greenhouse being in place. And then you have to think about, for example, the potential for urban greenhouses to store energy or to produce energy or to use energy when there is surplus of energy on the net, on the grid, the urban grid. Also to store water or to release water that they kept from, for example, the rooftops. So circularity in general, that it's organized in the city when it comes to energy, water, nutrients and waste. The greenhouse, the urban greenhouse, can be given a function in that. So that you don't deal only with houses, individual houses to produce energy or to store energy, but that you include the greenhouse in that. That gives the city huge opportunities to make next steps in improving circularity. So that's making the city more sustainable by making the infrastructures in the city more circular and sustainable. So the energy system, the water system. You could also say logistic systems for transporting food from and out of the city, etc. So the final argument then is that you also make the quality of city life better by profiling the food dimension of sustainable cities. So nowadays cities are very eager to show that they are sustainable cities. So they have a worldwide network of sustainable cities that communicate with each other about all kinds of issues, mobility, energy, water. And I think food is only recently added to that agenda. So the sustainable city agenda is very kind of low profiled when it comes to food. So if you then can argue that bringing in a kind of an urban greenhouse, because also this is an urban greenhouse, although it's a very small one, that it adds to the quality of the city as a sustainable city, because visitors can come there, because people can experiment with food, then you have an additional argument why they should kind of go with you in developing an urban greenhouse. And here you nicely see how it also is using kind of solar energy for food production. So it's a kind of a trendy thing to present also to tourists or to locals. So to conclude, in our challenge, the urban greenhouse is a challenge because it has to meet multiple goals, combining a number of key functionalities, and we call it the pillars of the challenge. And well, it's also already mentioned in the previous presentations, you cannot restrict yourself as a team only to food innovation or only to energy or only to the social dimension. You really have to make combination of that and to make choices on what is the priority in your design. Is it the architectural part, or is it the food part, or both? So these functionalities, they are in the 5 pillars, and well, you could say I do all 5, but sometimes they just, well, don't go well together. As I showed with the example of having a high participation of citizens on the one hand, and having a very efficient closed system with high technology production of food on the other hand. Sometimes the functionalities, they are kind of, well, contradictory. And you have to make, as a team, your own decisions on how do I combine these 5? How do I kind of fill in the functionalities of the different pillars and then come up with my end design? And I think that's the real challenge, next to the fact that you have to work on interdisciplinary basis. And I think Fru had a nice example that you work with 8 people and then 60 people from all different countries and all different disciplines. And this is really something that is a challenge. And also it is an international project. So the previous one was in Amsterdam and now this one will be in China. So the conditions in China will be really different from Amsterdam. So the learning from doing in the previous round is only to a certain extent possible, because in China it's again something completely different. You have to really kind of reconnect to the local situation, the sites there. And that's why we organized this site visit, because you must be aware that food production in China, urban food in China, is something different from food production in Amsterdam. You just cannot copy and paste the urban greenhouse and put it wherever you want. You have to adapt to the local circumstances. So this makes it into a real challenge. And this is, I found this one in your collection, Rio. I didn't know about this, but I was surprised, because in Shanghai they are now having a large-scale urban farming project already, and that's in the area close to where we have our site. It doesn't exist, no, but it's in a consultancy design process, similar like our teams, I would say. But they actually, this is 100 hectares. So it's not just one building, it's a complete area, a food area. And well, that made me think, okay, how do they define their goals? What are their pillars? What is the social dimension? You can see here many people. What is the architectural dimension? What is the food dimension in it? So it made me it triggered me to start thinking about it. Should we maybe connect to the consultancies, people that invented it? But that would be also a task up for the teams, because in the end, the teams have to do the job. You have to make the decisions. You are supported by the university. We are very proud of our teams. We finance you. We just give input also in terms of content. But in the end, the teams are, I would say, kind of entrepreneurs that make their own decisions. The only thing you have to consider is that in order to win, you have to deal with all the 5 pillars that we offer you for the challenge. Thank you.
So now time for questions. Questions to Gert, first of all. Okay, let's do with 3 of us. Will you join as well? So, go ahead. Any questions? We hope you have some questions. Okay, yes. I will. Okay.
Hi, perhaps a bit too controversial for a starting question, but I'll go for it anyway. Is there discussion or concern about how heavily capitalized urban farms, what the distributional consequences are for labor-intensive rural farms necessary for poverty alleviation in the global south? I mention this because you spoke briefly about the global south.
Or there's a classical trick, I would throw it away, throw it back to you, because we say what we define is not how you should do it, but you have to look at the local conditions and some kind of prerequisites. So that are the minimum kind of requirements that we define for you. But within that, you can go for food that is accessible for low-income people or not. You can go for healthy food or not. You can go for whatever. You can just say, well, it's sheltered food that saves food production from extreme weather events. So it's a very minimum definition. So depends on what the goals that you attach to your project makes you more or less vulnerable for the kind of criticism that you raise, I would say. So it would be a rather extreme point of view if you say, well, there can never be any form of urban food growing because there are so many already underway and they have many different shapes and forms. They're even run by low-income people. They are kind of self-organized. They are bottom-up network. They are capitalist, top-down company design. So everything is there.
Maybe give an example because in the last edition jury, we had Nona, and she's running an urban farm in Jackson Hole, extreme weather conditions, but she actually started it because of her brother, who is heavily handicapped. So actually this entire project is about food production, but it's also about empowering handicapped people and giving them employment, but also like a very good working place and a network. So maybe inspiring example.
Yeah, the other example was a container that goes to neighborhoods that are kind of low-income people, and they just can move the food-producing container to different places. So that was a low-access example. So there are many ideas around, but just for you to go shopping and discussing, and then selecting, and then designing. And Fru said it was a difficult process to get all people, all the.
I think it definitely was, and I can really feel like your question, or we struggled a lot on the justice approach of the greenhouse. So for us, I think the main question was gentrification. So how will this greenhouse, that was a prison before, will not gentrify an already gentrified neighborhood further? How will we produce food that is accessible by having in mind that the general or the average price of food should not decrease further? So these questions, and yeah, I can agree with Kert a lot. So with the team, you kind of make these decisions after each other, trying to navigate on like what's ethically right for the team. And then you come up with different designs at the end.
Any other questions? Yes. Give it a go.
Yeah, I have a question about the final product. What will the final product look like delivered by the team in this challenge?
Well, basically, it's a report. That's your final product, but it's packed with drawings, with architectural drawings, elevations, plans, with technical drawings of your food system, with with calculations and analysis of your circularity, flows, also with a description about your social system, calculations of your incomes and expenditures. And we also ask this year that every team comes up to the finals with a, let's say, with a model of a greenhouse. So really a physical 3D model that everybody can walk around and look how it's going to look like.
And you will also have a market stand at the finals, if you reach the finals, obviously, in which you can show other parts of your design that you have maybe constructed already. That market stand is also a way to show what you've done. You can show that to the jury members to make your concept more lively and not just that paperwork and the 3D model. But again, that's up to the team, what they would like to highlight and show to the audience as well as to the jury.
Just turn taking. And you just This time we had an in-between step that you present your preliminary ideas and first design ideas on the urban greenhouse to practitioners and scientists halfway the process. And then you get kind of feedback to say, well, these are the weaker parts and this is real strong parts of your design. So for the next half year, you can just try to specialize and deepen and make that better. The things that you're strong at should be kind of commented in terms of, okay, is it innovative enough? Is it kind of really front-running science and design? And I think, I hope by doing that, that teams are halfway, not so confused that they have to take on other members to have another discussion, but that you really can have first steps in first ideas, and then formulate it and present it, and then get feedback and comments, and then make the final design in a way that you're really convinced that it's the best way to do.
And we should not forget that you need to pitch to the jury. So that's also your product. Any more questions? Yes. Go ahead.
So what about like time commitment for this?
Okay, this question we get a lot. And I made some calculations. It's on our website. I actually explain it quite in detail because it really varies. So there is always a core team in a team, let's say, the people who do the most. So I think, Fruzi, you were part of the core team. So how many hours per week did you spend on challenge?
Don't tell them.
A lot. I spent roughly 15 hours a week on the challenge next to the studies, which I don't recommend. Like, looking back at it, it was just too much. Some of our teammates did the same time commitment and took a part of their courses off. So, for example, they only took the afternoon or the morning classes, or some of them even took a period off. But maybe that problem is solved with having the challenge as an actual course.
Yeah, that definitely helps. I think my calculation is around 8 hours per person throughout the entire challenge. And I also say there are moments where you are much more busy. So I would say really full time, and some more quiet moments. And of course, the busy moments are around the milestones and the finals and the site visit. And yeah, I think it's always good to say, okay, well, there is a minimum, there is a maximum. Don't overspend the hours. Yeah. Try to work efficiently. Very hard to say, actually. Yeah.
Okay. If you have a good plan, you don't need to spend 15 hours on the challenge.
But you get your own location within the campus, so then you come there together with the team, you spend hours there, and when Rio and me, we were preparing the first edition, we were visiting Delft University, Twente University and others to see what the formula for the Students' Challenge was like. And sometimes there were really kind of entrepreneurial teams that spent 24 hours a day for more than a year without any payment. So that was in Delft, because they want to win the Solar Challenge race. Maybe if you've seen it on television. So there were teams of 25 core members and then 60 other members that they could consult. They were highly professional. It took them 10 years to develop this idea. And we said, well, Wageningen Challenge is not like that, but it's also not just another course. It's not just, you know, a bit extra ECTS. It's you really, you are a team that has to be, well, you call it divisions, or functions, or let's say task forces within the team. You have people responsible for kind of acquisition and for media and for the technology, for the food part. So you really need specialists that are responsible for their own kind of dossier. So don't underestimate it. It needs especially communication. So I think when we were in Twente, these people told us the A performance comes with having an A team in terms of membership and internal organization. If you have a good team, you have a good result. But it takes time.
And to add to that, this academic year is the first time that we have a course which is called Student Challenges. It's part of the vrije ruimte, how do you say that in English? Free space of your program, 12 ECTS. from experience, we can say that everybody that participated spent more than 12 ECTS, but it is a way to create time and sufficient attention for participation in the challenge.
So we have an honors program at the university, so students who want to do some extra. We have startups, people who want to kind of do something extra and start to make money with it. And then we have the Students' Challenge. And there are three kind of innovative forms of engaging with education.
More questions? Yes, 2 questions over there. Give it a go.
I was just wondering, because you talked about the last greenhouse in the past, like that it used to be, like, is it still existing, or what happened to the greenhouse in Amsterdam?
Yes.
Oh, our greenhouse was a prison before. It's called the Belmer Bias. And the prison was not used anymore for, what happened to our concept? So at the beginning, when we won the challenge, after that we were consultants, or we were in consultation with the developer company, which is called OMA Real Estate. And we gave 2 presentations there, or with them, and then not much after that. So we are still in touch, or we still have the contact of these people, but our design as it was not implemented. But I think some ideas were taken from it. So I think mostly this, like, social inclusion, asking the neighborhood, and co-creation, like, I think that part was influential for their views.
We really learned from that lesson, because we were a little bit also disappointed about what happened with the results of the challenge. So this time we really worked closely with the real estate developer in the area in China, and we really hope that there will be more coming out of it. So I think you should not take it as a starting point.
Sometimes we are afraid there's too much coming out of it, because they wanted to be the first entitled to really build the design that our students would deliver. And then we run into all kind of juridical issues. So who's owning this idea? Is it a patent, or is it something else? So now we spend some really considerable time in formulating who's entitled to do something with the end results of the winning team. So that's complicated, but the idea is that the team themselves, they are responsible for doing the negotiations with whatever commercial partner shows up, and that the ones who is financing our challenge at the moment is the first in row to talk to the teams. That's a little bit the formula that we...
And I can add to that, I've been the one discussing with the real estate developer about what rights they have to the results of the challenge. As Gert said, they wanted everything, but we said, no, these students that participate, they spend so much time. It's their design, it's their technical innovation. So the IP remains with the team. The developer has the first right to start a negotiation with the teams within 4 weeks after the finals. It's up to the teams whether they want to accept the offer that developer makes or negotiate another deal. So yeah, they have serious intentions, but you go for innovation, and some part of that innovation needs to be tested further. So it's also a bit of a tension between implementation and innovation. So let's see what comes out of it. And for sure, I mean, there's a lot of interest from this developer to see what you all will come up with, and a serious intention to engage with the teams also after the challenge.
And we're making progress, because the first edition was a bit disappointing in terms of, well, commercial people not being interested, seemingly. Now, when we were doing our field trip to China, people were eager to work with us. And they were actually competing for being in the position to finance the challenge. So we hope if we do the challenge next round that people are aware that They can even go that far to promise to really build the design, something like that. So, but it needs time for people to see what is the potential of the Urban Greenhouse Challenge.
Just one question more to that. And for the prison, was it like was it an open project for building a greenhouse there, or was it just one suggestion of many possibilities to use that space as a greenhouse, or was it ought to be a greenhouse?
Well, when we started with the challenge, there was actually a plan already for that building. And I think that was the biggest problem, that they already had an idea. There was an element of food production, but that was much more. They call it a urban vertical park. So they really wanted to have a lot of entertainment and experience elements and a little bit of food production. So I think that's, yeah. There is a question over there.
Yeah, they're wondering, how do they find a team? Because in Wageningen it's kind of easy maybe, but how do you find a team when you're alone somewhere else? And also, could they consider this as a course as well, or is that impossible for them because they're on another university?
Depends. I think if they are if they are studying at one of the Dutch universities, I understand that there is a kind of collaboration, and you can take a course in any university, any other Dutch university, and the points will count for your study points. But I don't know what is the arrangement with international universities, so that's something people will really need to check themselves. That's the answer to the first question. When it comes to searching for a team, I have 2 tips. So first of all, we will very soon have an online tool. And with this online tool, you can, when you are registered to the challenge as a participant, and when you decide not to continue, but you registered on the website, then you can see the list of existing teams, and then you can see which of those teams are still looking for team members, and you can approach them, I think, per email, or maybe there's even a telephone number. So you can contact them and ask, well, I have this expertise, would you like to have me as a team member? But my second tip is, I think it works much better when you form your own team. So I would not rely too much on joining the teams, especially if there are teams, like if you are located in one place of the world and your team is in a completely different place. We had one team like this last year, and they all the time were really complaining about the communication, the time zones, the distance. That make it really difficult. And I think what worked with your team is you were really good friends. And we also saw it with a Techno-Titlan team. They still kind of are close. Yeah, they are still close with each other. They still work together. So I think this element of really connection is more important than, than just having a team. So I would suggest go and try to form your team and take a lead in that one. Okay, any other questions? No? There's a question here.
So, thank you very much for the presentation. I think it's a very clear presentation and also a very great experience and an opportunity to learn as well. I had a question regarding the process in itself. So you mentioned that there's going to be a preliminary phase. So the final product that you answered to the question before, is it going to be the same for the preliminary outcomes, let's say? And the second question was, is there going to be a matchmaking session again? So, or maybe also for the people who are not really eager of online matching, I think it's better to just have a feeling and see each other face to face.
Yeah, there will be, I mentioned that there will be Kickoff meeting on 15th of October, and we think that it's also a great moment to do matchmaking. So we hope everybody who is interested in challenge already joined, doesn't have a team, will come there, and then you will get to know each other, and that's the best, I think, best matchmaking moment, since we also expect the people from outside Wageningen and maybe outside the Netherlands, but of course for the teams who are located in Brazil or US, that's impossible to join, so that has to be solved differently. So that was the first question. And then regarding the process and the first milestone and the second, in principle, the first milestone is like a preliminary, so your first ideas. You make an analysis of what you know, of all the information. You make your first program, what this urban greenhouse is going to be about. So like your first choices, what Gert was emphasizing, that you need to make some choices. You make your first designs, then you go to China, you present it to the coaches, you get their feedback, and then you deepen your design. So maybe you want to change some things, maybe you want to, you got confirmation and you build on what you have already heard, well, whatever. But in principle, they overlap. Well, but yes, it's more like definitely the parts of the first milestone are also included in the report, but in the report you need to provide a detailed design, which is not required for the first milestone.
First part is about convincing. So it's what makes it attractive and what is new. And we had the kind of very short 3 minutes, 5 minutes videos, clips in the previous challenge. And that was really nice because you have a first impression, okay, this team is going for this. No, but I mean just to say well that the function of it is not to fill in all the technical details already, but just to convince, to show your choices. Yeah. Can I do this? Like that. Sorry.
So if someone has already a profile in the student challenges, because I was in a team last year at the Rethink Protein Challenge, can I still have my account and just enter this? Okay, thank you. Okay, so they're not connected with each other. Okay.
Last questions? Okay.
Because then I want to do something. I can go to throw it to you, and just you answer my question. What is needed for you to take part on the challenge? Oh, it was meant for you. Oh, sorry. Yeah. What should happen for you before you say, wow, this is interesting?
Well, I have to find some time. And maybe look for some information about the city, if it is interesting to, well, an idea for.
Chinese colleagues told me there are nice beaches around. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's kind of, so can I throw it one more time? Both of you.
Yeah. Oh, I have to find some time as well. It's the main important thing.
Yeah.
I need to figure out how to, study a little bit the site because I think it's very important.
Yeah.
Other things, I don't know. I'm really afraid about all the technical aspect that we have to face later on. I mean, after the first selection, if we pass it, of course. And other things, I don't know. I mean, university will help us.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
okay. Good. No, it's just the kind of things that I want to hear more about. Yes.
Don't need to be very worried about the information about the site. We already have a quite thick package of information about the site. Of course, when you go to China, you will get some more information. But, well, we definitely provide you with some starting points. And the technical details, check on website what exactly is required. Maybe you get less scared.
My concern is about like how to organize the group, like how to find the member that from different background. For us now, we have maybe we have plant sciences and landscaping design, but we're still looking for the engineering or social background or something. Also, I know that maybe we need some sponsors. I don't know that.
Yeah, so I can tell what my experience was with finding a team, because for us it really worked when we just started to talk about what we're doing to people that we already knew or were friends with. So used our own network to get to know more people, maybe outside of our network, and engage those who were not interested yet. So this is how we actually grew our team from 8 to 16 people, that we included most of our friends in it. And it was very good for the communication, and then we knew how to work with each other already. And for the sponsorship, for us, this 10,000 euro knowledge voucher / cash was very, very helpful. And this year you're offering it also to 2 teams, right?
I cannot confirm that it's going to be the same amount. So the amount is still unknown, but we have a starting budget. Yeah.
But we'll also learn if you go with 5 landscape people and or 10 food people together, that doesn't work. So it is really interdisciplinary, and you should try to cover all those fields that you want to score. So I think that's maybe better to not go to the people in the same study program, but to go to the student or association friends or something like that. So because you need this interdisciplinary composition, that's important. Yeah, that's true. So are we done, or should I throw it one more time?
I think it's good if we finish here. We are still here for a couple of minutes. You can ask us questions that you would like in person. You can get to know each other. And, well, I would suggest register and look for a team and see what happens and give it a go.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah.
It cannot replace ACT. You still need to do ACT. It's worth as many points as ACT, but it's not possible to replace it. Yeah. Oh, thanks a lot. Have a good evening. And we hope to see you again.
Replace